Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to the Arabic of the Quran series. Today we'll be doing lesson number 2, Introduction to Status. Let's begin. Before we move forward, let's have a quick recap of what we did in the last session. In the last session, we learned that any word in Arabic is either an ism or a fi'l or a harf. And the definition is that ism is a name, place, thing, idea, adjective, adverb, and more. Fi'l is a word that is stuck in the present, past, or future. And harf is a word that makes no sense unless a word comes after it. This we learned in the previous lesson. Today we are going to elaborate on ism. Today we are going to learn a lot more about ism. So every word that comes under the ism category has 4 properties. These 4 properties are just like, the 4 legs of a table. It just has to be there. If there's a table and it has 4 legs, similarly if it's an ism, it'll have 4 properties. So what are the 4 properties of an ism? Status, which you have no idea about, number, you don't notice yet, gender, and type. So the 4 properties are status, number, gender, and type. And in the following lessons, we are going to elaborate on each of these. We are going to learn a lot more about each of this, because right now you don't know what status is, you don't know what number is, you don't know what gender is, you don't know what type is. But in the future lessons, we are going to learn a lot more about this, so that when you see an ism, you can automatically be able to tell the status, number, gender, and type. This is what I want. Alright, so today we are going to learn about status. As you learned from the title, we are going to learn about status today. So before we learn about what status is in Arabic, we must first see the status in English. Now, if you attended in English grammar sessions, you will know that there is no such thing as status. You don't learn a separate topic called status. But there is hidden status in English. It's hidden, but it's there. Let's read the 3 sentences here. I went to school. The teacher gave me homework. My bag was missing. Now in this, for example, if I asked you which word in these 3 sentences point towards me, you would say that in the first sentence, I points towards me. In the second sentence, me points towards me. And in the third sentence, my refers to me, right? So I, me, and my. But can I interchange them? For example, can I say my went to school? Does that make sense? Or can I say the teacher gave I homework? That doesn't make sense, right? It's as if like I, me, and my have a place in English. This is kind of what Arabic is. Each word has a specific, it's the same word. I is also me is also me, and my is also me. But each word is used in a different way. That's what status is in Arabic, and this is a hidden status which is there in English. So in Arabic, there are also 3 forms of status. The first status is the rafa. This is the doer. The second is nasab. This is the detail. And the third is jar, the after of. You don't know what this means? We are going to understand them with examples. Examples are the best way to understand them. Just know that there is rafa, nasab, and jar. Rafa is the doer, simplified version. Simplified is Rafa is the doer, nasab is the detail, you don't know what it means, and jar is after of. Alright, so before we apply what we just learned in English grammar, first what we are going to do is we are going to broadly categorize the sentences. We are going to break each component of the sentences and tell whether it's an ism, fi'l, or harf. Okay, so let's get started. The first sentence is Allah created the skies. So the word Allah over here, what is the word Allah here? The word Allah is an ism. Why? Because it's a name. Created. Created is a fi'l. How do we know it's a fi'l? It's a fi'l because it's stuck in the past. Ed, created. The skies. The over here will be considered a harf. Why is it a harf? Because it doesn't make sense unless the skies come after it, right? The skies. So unless skies come, it doesn't make sense. Lastly, we have the word skies. This is a noun because it is a name. Simple enough. So if I were to categorize this, let's say yellow is for ism. Okay. So these 2 are yellow, which means what? These 2 are isms. Then Fail is black. Fail is black. And harf is green. Okay. So on this, the first sentence we classified, Allah, the word Allah is a ism, created is a fail, the is a harf, skies is a noun. We learned why this is. Now let's look at the second sentence. I went home. I went home. Again, I. What is I? It is a person, right? I is the name of a person. It's not a name of a person. It's a pronoun, which is referring to a person. So we can take it as what? It's an ism. So I, it's an ism. Then went. Went is a word that is stuck in the past again. So this will become as black. Next is home. Home is again a noun. It's an ism. It's a name of a thing. There. So I went home. I is an ism. Went is a fi'l. And home is a ism. Next. Escalators make life easy. Now look. Escalators. This is obviously an ism because it's the name of a thing. Make. What do you think make is? Make is an fi'l, yes. Life. Life is also a noun. It's an ism. So life is an ism. Easy. Now this is a hard one. What do you think easy is? Okay, let's break this down. Does easy make sense? Yes, it makes sense. So it's not a half. Does easy, is it a word that is stuck in past? Like, can we say easy is stuck in past right now? No, it's not. So it's not a fi'l either. Then what is it? We find that easy is actually a description of make, which means that it's an adverb. And an adverb, we know, is what? It's an ism, right? An adverb is an ism. So now we have classified escalators as a noun or an ism. Make is a verb or a fi'l. Life is an ism. Easy is an adverb. So that's why it's an ism. Clear? So we have classified 3 sentences. We have broken each sentence apart, and now we know exactly what each sentence are. So if I erase all this, you will be easily able to tell which part of the sentence is a fi'l, which part is an harf, and which part is an ism. Great. Now let's actually move on and apply what we just learned in the last slide. Now let us apply the understanding of status in the sentences that we have seen before. So the first sentence is I went to school. You already know this. My teacher gave me homework and my bag was missing. We already read this. Now first what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the fi'l and harf here, because we are not going to be focusing on fi'l and harf. We are only going to be focusing on the ism. So let's first remove all the fi'l and harf. So went is a fi'l, gave is a fi'l, was missing. These are the fi'ls. Now about harf. To and the. So these are the harfs. Now let's look at the isms. In the first sentence, I went to school. If I ask you who is the doer of the sentence, you will tell, what will you tell? It is I. I am the doer of the sentence, right? So let's put I with red. The doer is red, okay? Now the next comes the detail. I know you will say the detail is school, but why is it school? What does it mean? Listen, I went. If I say I went, the logical question will be, where did you go? And then I will answer, I went to school. So the school over here, the word school, is an explanation of where I went. Isn't that correct? It's a detail. It's giving you more information. So the words that give more information about the action or about the doer of the action, it is called as detail or nasab. In Arabic it's called nasab, and the doer is called rafa, right? You learned that. So the doer is I in the sentence, and that's rafa. The detail, it is What's the detail? It's nasab. Now, so this we learned, it is nasab. Great. Now let's look at the second sentence. The teacher gave me homework. Who is the doer here? Straight up. Teacher, right? Teacher is the doer. So this will be read. Now, the most important thing about details is that you need to learn how to ask the right questions. For example, over here I asked where. Can I ask where here? Is the information going to give me where? No, it's not going to give me. So instead what I'll ask, for example, I'll ask, what did the teacher give? And the answer is homework. So therefore we conclude that the homework is a nasab. It's a detail because it's explaining what the teacher gave. Another question can be asked, whom did the teacher give homework to? And the answer is me. Since it's giving more information, this is also considered nasab. Is that clear? Now in the final or the third sentence, we notice something different. There is no nasab here. Okay, the doer is, I know, you'll tell the doer is bag over here. But what is the nasab? There is no nasab. Some may point at my, but in reality, my is not a nasab. It's something that you're going to learn in a while. It is known as the third form of status, the third status. Remember the third status? This is what it is. And you're going to learn that in the next slide. But for now, I want you to be very clear. We have the doer and the detail where we have differentiated between them. We have already differentiated between them. Am I right? The doer and the detail has already been differentiated between. You know exactly what is rafa and what is nasab. If you are given any sentence in English, you will be able to easily point out what is rafa and what is nasab. And depending upon the sentence, you have to learn to ask the right questions to find the nasab. For example, out here if I ask, who went to school? That will not give me nasab, will it? Who went to school? That's giving the doer of the action, and that's rafa. That's why it's important to ask the correct questions. Asking the correct questions is important to find the nasab of the sentence. Alright, now let's solve the mystery of my. What is my classified as? Let's see. So what is the third place in Arabic? What is the third status? The jar, after of. What is this? In Arabic, there is a special position for a word that comes after of. For example, the house of Ibrahim. In this particular example, the word that comes after of is Ibrahim. So Ibrahim will have a special position. Ibrahim is jar. Ibrahim is in the jar position. Okay. There is no substitute for the word of. Arabic doesn't have a separate word of. There are other hidden of in Arabic. Okay. The English sometimes also happens the same thing. For example, the apostrophe s, the possessive s. Remember Khalid's house. Now this can be rephrased as house of Khalid. And now here we will be saying that Khalid is actually in the jar form because after of. And then there's a case of possessive pronouns like my book. Yes, just like my bag, my book. This can be rephrased and told the book of mine. Isn't that true? The book of mine is equal as my book. So over here we see that mine or my is the jar, right? My or mine is in the jar form. Why? Because after of. So basically jar it's a word that comes after of. It happens to be in jar. And in Arabic there is no word substitute for of. So what happens? There is possessive nouns. For example, over here we can see apostrophe. So there is a possessive. It shows who the owner of the house is. It shows who the house belongs to, the ownership. Similarly, my book, it shows who the book belongs to or who the bag belongs to. Remember the previous example? My bag was missing. Similarly, over here it shows who the bag belongs to. Who the book belongs to. So we learned that in case of the ownership or possessiveness, there is a special place for the word after of, which is jar. So if in this house of Khalid or Khalid's house, the first question should be there is an apostrophe s. This phrase can be rephrased. How will it be rephrased? It will be the house of Khalid, and in that case Khalid is in the place of jar. Khalid is jar, right? Similarly, in the second case, my book, book of mine. So my is actually in the jar form. This is tricky, so you need to pay attention to this. If you see an apostrophe s, or if you see possessive pronouns like my, then you should be able to rephrase the sentence, and you should know which word comes after of, and that after of word will be in the jar form. Clear? Alright, so now it's time for the final close-up where we are going to be discussing everything. We are going to be talking about ism, fi'l, harf, rafa, nasab, jar, everything that we learned in the past 2 lessons. We are going to have a quick recap over here in English. We are not focusing on Arabic at all today. Today is just in English so that you get your concept clear. In the next video, we'll be talking about how we should identify them in Arabic. But today is just an English video, alright? So now let's get started. First, we are going to eliminate all the fi'l and harf because today is not about them. Today we are only going to focus on what? We are only going to focus on the isms. Great. So let's start with eliminating the fi'l. Fi'l in the first sentence is. Second sentence, visited. Third, found. And then fourth, submitted. Okay. I hope this was clear. Now, next we are going to find out about the. Now you might think in the first sentence that of is a harf, and it actually is a harf, but in Arabic it's not there, so we are going to pretend it doesn't exist. Okay, we are going to pretend that the of here does not exist. Instead of that, we are going to find other harfs that are there. Okay, so let's get started. Over here we see the, then over here again the, and then on. Over here there is no. In the fourth sentence there is no harf. Okay, great. Now let's start classifying them. So in the first sentence we see the house of Rania is beautiful. Okay, the house. What's the doer of this sentence? You will say there is no doer, but something is being talked about here. Doer means what is being talked about. What is the subject? You can even call it subject. So what is being talked about here? House. So therefore we can say house will be in Rafa because it's what's being talked about. Great. Next, of we are going to ignore. We don't care about of. There is no of in Arabic. Rania. Now we know that this word Rania comes after of. Meaning what? Meaning that it is going to be a jar. This is what we learned in the last slide. It's going to be a jar. Okay, so Rania is a jar. Then beautiful. What is being talked about? What is giving the explanation, the information on the house? Beautiful. Therefore, what is beautiful? It is, you're right, it is an nasab. This is how the first sentence is classified. Now moving on to the second sentence. Okay, again, who is the doer here? I is obviously the doer. Therefore, I is Rafa. Now next, I visited. Now then you see the word her last week. Now first we can ask whom did you visit, and that will give me explanation. It will give me an information, and we can say it's her. I visited her. Therefore, her is a nasab. Next you can ask when did you visit, and the answer will be last week. So see, when, where, how, even how it can come, whom did you visit, all these words, all these questions are what's giving us the nasab. So we need to ask the right questions. Great. Now in the third sentence, let's see. First we can see that I is a doer. That's clear, right? We already know what the doer is. So I is a Rafa, which I'm doing in red. And next, teacher's book. Now look, there is an apostrophe s. In the previous slide we already told what this apostrophe s means. This means that it can be rephrased. Teacher's book. Can it be said as book of the teacher? Is that correct? If so, what is the word after of? Book of teacher. What is the word after of? It's teacher. So teacher is going to be jar. Why is it jar? Because it's after of. When we rephrase the sentence, what is it after of? Teacher. Book of teacher. Now book is going to be what? Book is going to be nasab. Why is it nasab, you ask? Because it's explaining what I found. What did you find? I found the teacher's book. Teacher, we already know it's jar because after of, but the book is before of, therefore it is a nasab. It doesn't need to be jar, only after of is jar. Great. Now next, my table. Again, the possessive pronouns. Remember, mine, hers, theirs, all these are possessive pronouns. So what are we going to do? We are going to rephrase them. Table of mine. So if we rephrase table of mine, the word that comes after of is what? It's my, right? So my is going to be a jar. Great. And then the table is going to be again a nasab. Why is it a nasab? Because it's actually explaining what happened. It's explaining where you found the book, right? It's giving an explanation. Next, in the fourth one, I, very clearly, I is a doer. My homework. Again, there's a possessive pronoun. There's a ownership here. There's belongingness here. How can it be rephrased? Homework of mine. Homework of mine, which means my is going to be, yes, my is going to be in the jar's place. And then homework, it is nasab because it's telling what you submitted, what I submitted. And then yesterday is another detail. When did you submit? I submitted it yesterday. Therefore yesterday is also a nasab. See, is this clear? Is everything I did just now clear for you? Again, we are skipping off because off doesn't exist in Arabic. Okay, so yeah, I hope everything was clear. You understood exactly what we did here. What did we do? We eliminated all the fi'al and harf because we didn't focus on that today, and then we classified the remaining isms into the status. Either they are rafa, nasab, or jar. Rafa is a doer, or as we saw in this sentence, it is a thing being talked about. It's a subject, basically. It's a subject. And then there we learned about nasab, which is the detail. We learned how to ask the right questions, and finally we learned about jar, which is after of, and we learned the ways it can be hidden in English and Arabic, because in Arabic it will usually be hidden. Okay, so yeah, that's all for today. In the upcoming sessions we'll be talking about how to identify them in Arabic, and yeah, I hope this was all fairly easy. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comments. And that's all. See you in the next video.